Avatar: The Last Airbender is probably one of the greatest cartoons of all time. I used to watch this show every single day as a child, or at least whenever it would come on Nickelodeon. Weekly? I don't know. Anyway, years later, to my surprise, I go downstairs, walk into the living room, and there's my 6-year-old little brother watching the show. Something about my little brother you should know is he's what I like to call a binge god. He somehow finished all seasons of this show in 2 days. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is quite normal in the current way we consume television today. But I'd like to remind you, he is 6. But maybe that just speaks to how great the show actually is. So, anyway, he quickly finishes Avatar: The Last Airbender and starts The Legend of Korra, naturally. But from what I remember about The Legend of Korra is that show is horrible, trash, garbage, filth. Who would want to watch it? So I'm sitting looking at him like, bro, why are you watching this show? But I realized I haven't actually watched The Legend of Korra in a few years, and I don't really remember the show at all. All I remember is that I didn't like it for some reason. So I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity to remind myself of how bad the show is. So I sat down and watched it with my little brother. A few days later, I was super surprised to say, it's not that bad. Like, I actually like it. It's quite good. The Legend of Korra is a really good continuation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But why has my opinion changed? Why is it so different now? Why did I remember the show being so terrible? Why did I hate the show when I was younger? I had to find out, so naturally, I watched every single hate video of The Legend of Korra I could find, and the general consensus seems to be people don't like The Legend of Korra because it's not Avatar: The Last Airbender. By this point, I think we all know that The Legend of Korra was supposed to only be 1 season, got extended by Nickelodeon, blah 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 blah. But what is the real reason people seem to hate this show beyond characters? Now, I understand Korra can be quite unlikable sometimes, Milo can be a bit cringy and annoying, Amon felt a little bit wasted as a character. I saw a lot of people say that his ability to take away bending undermined Aang's ability to take away bending. And it seemed that a lot of people's hatred of this show seemed to come at the expense of their memory of the original. Whether it was cutting off Korra's connection to all the past avatars, or it was how they continued the character's progression from the old show. But I'd say Korra is actually quite an interesting character and a very interesting avatar. Her character development from season 1 to season 4 is some of the greatest character development I've seen in a cartoon. Honestly, she starts off as quite optimistic, childish, frustrated. She only seems to care about herself because she thinks she's the best, and whenever she's faced with adversity, she gets frustrated and leaves. By the end of the show, she realizes how important it is to restore balance and take care of everyone around her that she loves and cares about. She puts others before herself and takes the world's views and puts them all on her back and carries them, much to her detriment. Because Aang was such a great avatar before her, she feels this immense pressure to live up to what he was able to do. But the world around her has changed. There's been so many technological advances. People don't bend in the same way. People don't discuss issues in the same way. I mean, before in Aang's time, if you wanted to take over the world, you just had to wait for a comet to pass you and you burned everything. Now we have politics, we have world leaders, we have technology, we have civilizations, we have Republic City. There's so many different things that Korra had to juggle that Aang never even had to think about, that I think you have to give Korra the benefit of the doubt when it came to the way she solved most of her issues. So mainly, I believe a lot of the reason that fans are unable to accept The Legend of Korra is because it changes so much about what they loved about the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. The Legend of Korra storylines changed the direction of what fans believed they wanted the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe to follow. There are definitely some legitimate reasons to not like The Legend of Korra, and it's all up to your preference, but honestly, a lot of the hatred is just because of the nostalgia of people's love for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So let's talk about it. The new characters, the new Team Avatar, why does everybody hate them so much? Is it simply because they are not like Zuko, Katara, and everyone else on the original Team Avatar? Or is it because there are genuine character flaws with the new characters created? Well, after rewatching The Legend of Korra, I think it's a little bit of both, more leaning towards the latter. But I would say that the characters in the new show are actually quite endearing. Bolin is really funny. Mako was extremely important throughout the entire story. He helped the character progression of many of the characters on the Team Avatar. The Legend of Korra is really well written, and the characters are amazing in their own right. Now, they're not like Avatar The Last Airbender's characters, but that's because they don't go through the same challenges. We all know the sequels are challenging, and it's hard to follow up something that was so beautifully done. However, there were definitely parts where I think characters fell short because they weren't given enough time, and moments didn't hit as hard because it wasn't given enough space to breathe. And if The Legend of Korra allowed us to sit in moments longer and really get to know characters more and understand their relationships, it would have been a way better show because you would have cared. Amon and Unalaq don't have enough going for them for you to truly invest in them as people. I think the Fire Lord Ozai was so perfect because of how he was portrayed throughout the entire story. Whereas in this story, the way the villains tackle their themes and their subjects, you just really weren't heavily invested in them. It didn't really focus on the individual relationships between the villains enough, or allow us to sit in the reasons why the villains had their morals. Instead, it just forced us to accept the characters with the way they were by showing us flashbacks right at the end of a battle. The issue with The Legend of Korra is it doesn't take things far enough. It touches on things that we all really liked, but then it just falls short right at the end, and it's like, oh my gosh, that would have been a really interesting character moment, but you just cut it off and you moved on to the next theme, or Bolin came in with a joke, or Milo farted, and it's like, no, let us enjoy this moment. That was what we loved about Avatar The Last Airbender. It perfectly balanced the heartfelt moments and the funny moments. It was a child show, but we could also relate to it later in life because it had themes and subjects that were so powerful and moved us and taught us things about even ourselves. I personally really liked the relationship between Korra and Asami, but we didn't really get too many character beats beyond them writing letters to each other in the beginning of season 4 and awkward moments where they would kind of hang out. How am I supposed to be invested in two characters' relationships and the romantic development of two characters when all I've seen is them try and drive a car together? I've seen many arguments that the technological advancement in the society really kills the whole idea of bending, but I'd argue bending was actually handled very well in this show. I think there were amazing fight scenes and amazing new uses of bending, and you can't keep the world in the same time period, and you can't keep the world in the same box as the Avatar The Last Airbender series. You have to change certain things, and I actually think they did really well with the world building. I just wanted to see more. I think the most endearing part of The Legend of Korra for me, my biggest takeaway, was the original characters and how they progressed in the time. I think that is its biggest downfall, is it's most interesting when it's looking back on the characters we already love. But why wouldn't it be? We already had 3 seasons of development with them. We grew with them, we loved them, and we want to see what they did. You gave us these new characters and barely developed them throughout the show, so why would we care about them as much? There were so many amazing moments that could have been greater moments if you gave it the time to breathe. Janora's entire storyline of becoming an airbending master was one of the most intriguing parts of The Legend of Korra, but again, it didn't really have time to breathe, or was overshadowed by something else. Aang's children in this show, the way they interacted with each other, the way they developed, was heartbreaking. Aang was an amazing protagonist, but we recognized that he was flawed. It wasn't unnatural for him to be a bad father, and I think that was a really interesting character beat in which they focused on. However, they clearly, much like Aang, decided to develop Tenzin a lot more than Bumi and Kaya. I think that if you're going to tell a story about Aang as a father and his children now in the world, you need to equally focus on all of them and the different aspects of how Aang raised them. It's very clear that him and Katara were trying to have an airbender. What did that do to Bumi? What did that do to Kaya as a waterbender and a non-bender? You touch on these themes a little bit, and you gave us some really heartfelt moments, but then you cut it short again when Bumi is in that room looking at the statue of Aang, and he's asking Aang if he made him proud with a tear in his eye, and Kaya comes to console him. Let that moment breathe more. Maybe let Tenzin come in and see that Aang wasn't a great father when Aang had to come visit him in the spirit world and let him know that he wasn't just his son, that he was his own person. Why didn't the other children get that same character development? I think the overall issue with Korra is that it presents us these amazing themes but doesn't expand on them or give them room to breathe, and so you're just left feeling like, that was kinda cool. Now while that is the case, I don't think that takes away from the moments that we did get. I think there were some amazing moments, some beautifully choreographed scenes. The animation was super crisp. The character development of Korra was probably the best in the show. All the scenes with Jinora and the rest of Tenzin's children were really endearing to me. I loved seeing Toph. I loved seeing Katara. The little splashes of Uncle Iroh in the spirit world were really heartwarming. There were some beautiful moments and some amazing fight scenes. It felt like almost every episode they were fighting. When Tenzin was fighting Zahir, when the entire airbending colony was battling the Red Lotus, that fight was so intense, and Tenzin showed some real heart. When he said, "It's not over until I stop breathing," and continue to box with them boys, it was amazing. But again, it cuts away and shows us something else. It shows Korra in the desert with Asami trying to build a new ship. It's like, no, go back to the thing I wanted to see. Kai was an amazing character, but we needed more. In season 4, he kind of just disappears into the background, and it's like, we wanted more development from him. So what am I saying in this rant? It's not really a story video, it's more of a rant. What I'm saying is, The Legend of Korra isn't a bad show. It's a show that had really good moments that just weren't expanded on enough. And I think once you get over the nostalgia aspect of Avatar: The Last Airbender and really look at The Legend of Korra as its own piece, you'll see that it's really not that bad and is an enjoyable experience for what it is. However, if they continue with the new Avatar studios to make Avatar series and products, I hope that they expand more on characters, expand more on the world, and give moments the time to breathe. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about The Legend of Korra. I know this was just kind of a rant for a few minutes, but I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, please let me know. Hit the subscribe button and comment what you loved or what you hated about The Legend of Korra and what you're looking forward to in the new Avatar Studios announcements. What kind of stories do you want to see told? Do you want to see a new Avatar? Do you want to see a past Avatar? Please let us know, and thank you for watching the video.